In an Arrowhead Stadium matchup, we have the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Cincinnati Bearcats fighting it out. Who can start the season 1-0 between two teams that honestly disappointed last year for a variety of reasons and have made different changes to their roster, different changes to their staffs to march forward and hopefully have a bounce back year in 2025. It's funny that Nebraska is listed as the away team and Cincinnati is the home team because I'm pretty sure 90 to 95% of the Arrowhead participants, of the Arrowhead fans will, or patrons, whatever you want to call them, will be Nebraska fans. So it'll be a de facto Nebraska home game, and that's a topic of discussion that we'll bring up throughout this video. This game is kicking off at 9 Eastern time. That is 8 Central Time for Nebraska fans, also 9 Eastern Time for Cincinnati fans because they're in the Eastern Time zone. Weather will be about 70 degrees at kickoff, 8 miles per hour, give or take. The spread currently is Nebraska -7. Key number there, not a half number. So if Nebraska wins by exactly a touchdown and you bet either way, well, you don't lose your money. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's how Vegas and the sports books and betting and all that beautiful stuff works. But looking at these two teams from last year, they both disappointed. And a key reason for that was Cincinnati had Brennan Sorsby. They had a really good running back like Corey Kiner, for example. They were a really talented team, a team with lots of potential. And yet due to injuries and due to questionable coaching and playing in a lot of close games in the Big 12 and just not having them all turn your way like Arizona State did, some of that's luck, but a lot of that's coaching, Cincinnati finished with a negative points per play margin, negative 0.053. That means for every one of their plays compared to every one of their opponents' plays, Cincinnati's opponents outscored them by 0.053 points per play. Before we resume this segment, please take a few seconds of your time to make sure you have liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and for any team podcasts and playlists linked in the description, and also comment your thoughts down below in the comment section and join my Discord server via the description. All of those things I just asked you to do are completely free, and they sign you up for things related to my channel, or they don't sign you up for anything. No cost to you, and all the benefit to you because we release daily college football content here on College Football with Sam. If you want to support the channel monetarily, sign up for a YouTube membership, or check any other links in the description for my merchandise store and Patreon page. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the segment. Not very good. It's about a 500 caliber team. Same thing with Nebraska, negative 0.027 points per play margin, and they had a winning season. Cincinnati, meanwhile, finished 5-7. Offensively, Cincinnati was better than Nebraska a little bit. Towards the end of the year, Nebraska probably passed them, but Nebraska's offense started out rough, and we're going off of 2024 because that's what we have right now. Defensively, Cincinnati was awful, though. And Nebraska wasn't extremely better, but they also played the much tougher schedule. They had to play a great Indiana offense, a great Ohio State offense, which they actually performed admirably against, and it's not like Illinois was an easy task either. For example, looking at the power ratings, Nebraska has an 8.7 rating, which means per FPI, they're 8.7 points better than the average college football team. They're in the 20s, they're 29th. Cincinnati's a 3.7. So per FPI, the spread's maybe a little bit in Nebraska's direction, but also since it's in Arrowhead, closer to Nebraska in their time zone with majority Nebraska fans, you could also make the argument that the spread's pretty spot on there. For the X Factor players, I like Dylan Raiola for Nebraska, his wide receivers, Dane Keene, Isaiah Hunter, and Ja'Cory Barney Jr., and the interior offensive line. That being Rocco Spindler, Henry Lutovsky, Sam Sledge, and a variety of players on that interior who Justin Evans Jenkins, for example, I think they're deep there. They have good size. They've received good development, and I think with Dana Holgerson's system, they're going to be a really good interior O-line this year. You look at Cincinnati, their X factors are running back. I like Tawi Walker. I like Evan Pryor, 2 transfers from former Big Ten schools. Joe Royer, another transfer from a Big Ten school in Ohio State, is one of the best, if not the best, tight end in the Big 12. And you got to look at Dontay Corleone, for that Cincinnati defensive tackle unit. He's healthy, wasn't healthy for much of last year. He could be an All-American. So Cincinnati and Nebraska, these teams, they have some X factors on the interior of their trenches. And for Cincinnati, I also want to point out that you shouldn't underestimate Brennan Sorsby either. You really shouldn't underestimate him. He could be an X factor here too. I just favor Raiola over him a little bit, and I think that Cincinnati also has some better players in different positions. So let's look, I think, at some key factors and questions for these teams. So can Nebraska start off fast is an important storyline for this game and also for the season. There's a lot of changes, coordinator, incoming transfers, and in a game like this against a Cincinnati team that will want to turtle up, will want to run the ball, is capable of doing that, has big physical tight ends, a quarterback who's mobile and can take hits, can Nebraska get off to a fast start and just put this game away? And for Cincinnati, can they turtle up, use slow tempo, and grind Nebraska up and maybe put them in a very uncomfortable position? That's an interesting question. Those are key questions, and factors that pair with these, I believe, are the style of play, which we already talked about a little bit. So does Nebraska's athleticism pull away, or can Cincinnati win with ball control? Those are key questions. And which interior offensive line versus defensive tackle mismatch is worse? That's another key question. So when I look at Nebraska, they got Cam Lenhart, Riley Van Poppel. They have some guys on the defensive line that have talent. But Dontay Corleone is better than all of them. And he's better than all of them by a, I would say, fairly large clip at this point. You have, for Cincinnati, Evan Tishengal and some other returning starters on the interior of their offensive line. And I don't think they're as good as Rocco Spindler, Henry Lutovsky, Sam Sledge, Justin Evans. So really for the Nebraska interior versus the Cincinnati interior, Nebraska offense, Cincinnati defense, I'm curious to see who wins that. But it could matter the other way too in the weaker matchup between these teams. What if Cincinnati's weakness in the interior O-line is their defensive tackle unit's tougher than the interior O-line? What if I'm wrong and their interior O-line is mean, and with that running back room, Nebraska can't get off the field, and Cincinnati just eats at them, keeping their defense on the field the whole game? The quarterback leap is another fascinating storyline, because Sorsby and Raiola last year were pretty neck and neck. We're very close together. Now Raiola's more talented, and now he's going to have double the preseason prep that he did last season. In fact, he's going to have 100% more, because last year he didn't have much preseason prep. Well, that's saying the same thing. What was I saying there, Sam? The point that I'm trying to make is Raiola should take a bigger leap, but that's not guaranteed. So that's a question and a factor to pay attention to. What about the tackling, and what about the home field advantage? So Nebraska has a de facto home game here, and also for these teams, they both have veterans in the defensive backfield, but they also do have some questions there, especially as it relates to player upside. So who tackles better? Who performs the basics better is a key question in this matchup. And this is a very important game for both of these teams. If Cincinnati wins, Nebraska could be realistically the best team they play all season. Now, if Nebraska loses, one could make the argument that they're not very good. I could make the argument that much like last year, when Nebraska was power rated over Illinois, even at the end of the year, they lost to a team that talent-wise was inferior, but on that day matched up well and maybe outcoached them or maybe just outmatched them. Cincinnati can do that. They have a lot of matchup advantages here, I think. Not just offense-defense. They should have the better special teams unit. That's something that Nebraska struggled with. I think they're going to fix with Mike Eckler coming in. But will you fix that in one preseason without any game experience? That's probably not likely. So it's something to pay attention to here. It's also a big game for Nebraska, obviously. Cincinnati wins this game, they could win the Big 12 and get into the playoffs. Nebraska wins this game, well, they've passed the test. They're probably improving off of their 2024 record, which means I'd say 7-5 or much more likely 8-4, and they'll still be in the playoff hunt. This is a team that has playoff aspirations, and if you lose, you're probably not in the playoffs given who's on your schedule. Nebraska has more to lose here. Cincinnati has more to gain. So you have that tug of war that's going on. And speaking of the tug of war, let's get to the roster matchups, which actually determines who's able to pull the other team to their side. Nebraska's passing offense is going to be a nightmare, I think, for Cincinnati's pass defense to deal with. Cincinnati has some good players in the defensive backfield, but Nebraska, I think, with their quarterback and wide receivers, has a pretty big advantage over Cincinnati. I will say one thing is Nebraska's tackles are probably not going to hold up amazingly against the Cincinnati defensive ends, but I imagine if Raiola and his receivers have made the leap that I think they do, they won't have a problem getting the ball out quickly and taking advantage of space in a way that Cincinnati can't defend all that well due to a talent mismatch. Nebraska will run the football, I'd say, respectably against the Cincinnati rushing defense. Nebraska's interior O-line is good enough to hold up against Dontay Corleone and that Cincinnati unit, and Raiola now being more mobile should not put Nebraska in some of the long downs he did last year, either taking sacks or not being able to scramble. Plus, you got Emmett Johnson for Nebraska. But this is equal because Cincinnati has some players on the defensive line who are going to make it tough to run on. When you look at Nebraska's passing defense versus Cincinnati's passing offense, it's also a push. I like Brennan Sorsby. I love Joe Royer. And Tawi Walker and Evan Pryor, no, they're not involved in the passing offense, but we can go to the rushing offense here. They are going to get after it on the ground. And I think they have an advantage against a Nebraska defense, backfield, and line that has questions and new transfers and a new defensive coordinator. I like Cincinnati's rushing offense here. Not quite as much as I do Nebraska's passing offense, but close, or closer than one might expect. Cincinnati has the better special teams unit. Steven Rusnak was perfect last year with Charlotte. He'll be their kicker this year for the Bearcats. Nebraska's John Hull, who I think has the potential to be perfect or close to it, but I just have to see a little bit if that's the case. He was inconsistent last year. Nebraska's staff is way better than Cincinnati's staff, and their talent is also far better than Cincinnati's talent. And this leads me, I think, pretty clearly to pick Nebraska here. Nebraska will beat Cincinnati, but I also believe that Cincinnati has enough matchup advantages to cover that 7-point line. I think that is too many points. Nebraska, in my vision, probably wins by 4 points. Or maybe by 5 as Cincinnati tries to get a 2-point conversion and fails. Anywhere from 3 to 5 points is, I think, what Nebraska will win by. I think Nebraska will score more touchdowns than Cincinnati. Cincinnati will get about as many yards but be forced to kick more field goals because they're not as dynamic, and it will be very back and forth. Not a shootout, but not low scoring either. It will be, I think, a pretty competitive, fun Thursday night game, a little bit of a nail biter that ultimately I believe Nebraska pulls away with because they have the wide receivers and the quarterback and the running backs to score quickly and to be effective in the red zone. I just don't think that maybe outside of Sorsby connecting with Royer, or if that interior O-line really dominates Nebraska's D-line, I don't think Cincinnati can match what Nebraska can do in the red zone or scoring touchdowns overall. So I'm picking Nebraska to win, to cover. They'll begin 1-0, and then they have 2 weeks, 2 games that are essentially buys to prepare for that huge game against Michigan. Thank you for watching College Football with Sam. Make sure that you've liked the video, subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and team playlists and podcasts in the description, joined the free Discord server where we talk college football 24/7, and have commented your thoughts down below. Check out the description for any ways you can support the channel monetarily. Everything else I've asked you to do is completely free, and your support means the world to me. We're trying to become the next big thing on college football YouTube. 6-figure subscribers, maybe 1 million one day. I think we can do that. And also check out any videos or playlists, anything in these columns right here, where there will be videos and playlists. Yeah, you get the point. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.